This is Fireside Friday with the Black Book Experience, the podcast that is your go to for insights on integrating autism and neurodiverse skills to fuel your business's success. I'm Laquan Black, your host and the founder of the Black Book Experience. And if you are new here, welcome and thank you for joining me for this third episode in this limited series podcast. I encourage you to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of the valuable free content that is being made available to you. And if you are returning, thank you for coming back. But either way, your presence and support of this channel is appreciated and it's vital to the growth and partnership with businesses to bring your company, our training model, and employment that benefits both you and autistic people. Make sure you watch until the end because I have a very exciting announcement to share with you on this week's episode. So if you missed episode 1, where the foundation for what the Black Book Experience does was shared, the who and the why of the services offered, I encourage you to go back and watch it because you missed an important statistic that I'm going to talk more about in this week's or this month's episode. What if I told you that you can increase your business performance by as much as 28%? Let's think about that for a moment. Okay. There are companies like Microsoft, SAP, and JP Morgan who all have quite robust autism hiring programs. SAP, just in case you didn't know, is a global software development enterprise and data management organization who, in a nutshell, really is a global tech company. In 2013, they were the first business to capitalize on the strengths and abilities of autistic people by developing a training program in-house to hire for this particular type of neurodiversity. Now, here are some statistics from their website. And I'm going to quote this particular statistic directly from their website because I could not have said it any more succinctly or briefly. So from their website, it says that they have over 160 colleagues on their teams with autism in 14 countries across 28 locations in 25 plus job types. End of quote. I want you to let that sink in. 160 colleagues or employees who are autistic, spread across 14 countries. In all those countries, 28 different locations. And this part was particularly interesting to me. 25 different types of jobs in which autistic persons and the skills and the talents that they bring are used across SAP. Now, in 2015, Microsoft then launched their program and created a great video on how their program has been structured to hire for their roles in which autistic people have been able to fill. At JP Morgan, they also developed an in-house program that they call Autism at Work. And in 2017, when they started that program, it revealed that autistic employees are between 90 and 149% more productive based on various factors like their ability to hyperfocus on a problem until a solution is found. Very interesting point if you think about that discovery just from what they've been able to do with a homegrown program to hire folks who are on the spectrum. I've provided some links to articles and videos from these statistics that I just talked to you about, and you can go look at them for yourself. After this episode is over, you'll find those links in the description box below that detail and highlight benefits from the perspective of each of those businesses, and it solidifies what I will further discuss in this month's episode as I teach you how to profit with purpose. So let's get into the heart of what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to talk about how autistic thinking styles and ways of processing information drive the kind of innovation that transforms businesses, that can actually transform your business, giving you a competitive advantage. Here are a couple of different points for you to think about in terms of how innovation is driven with the talents that they bring to your organization. Different thinking patterns, right? Pattern recognition and attention to detail, ability to spot inefficiencies that sometimes some of us may miss, creative problem solving from unique perspectives, and an intense focus and dedication to areas of interest. Now, let's talk about each of these just for a moment. Pattern recognition and attention to detail. A lot of times people see this in autistic people. They like to line things up in a row. They often will line them up in a way that makes sense if you step back and look at it, such as all cars and trucks together, all cars and trucks with a certain color together, all two-wheeled vehicles together versus four-wheeled vehicles. That is pattern recognition and attention to detail when engaging in any task. There's also, again, the ability to spot inefficiencies. Oftentimes, autistic people or neurospicy people, as some people like to call themselves, they will ask and seek out a lot of questions when understanding and learning how to do a task, or in this case, perform a job, right? Their ability to spot these inefficiencies are really harnessed by their ability to ask questions, to seek clarity around what it is that they're being asked or tasked to do in a specific job role. Creative problem solving from unique perspectives really goes hand in hand also with the final point, in my opinion, which is intense focus and dedication on an area of interest. When they are trying to solve a problem, and particularly when you combine that with something that they have an interest in doing, which means if they come to your jobs and they apply for the roles that you offer, they have an interest. And in other cases, it may mean that they have a particular or special interest or specific talent. Some people are artists, some people work good with numbers, some people work well with data and information. Whatever that area of interest is, if there is a problem, they are going to figure out a way to solve it. Because the way that their brain works and processes information, if something is missing, they want to find the key and the piece to make whatever it is that they're trying to do work. And that is an advantage for you as a business, as an organization. Let's talk about a couple of ways that this is shown in action. There are specific things that we are able to find from research where we see that technical innovations born from pattern recognition have occurred. Also, that what has come out of that is process improvement because of their ability to look at things and observe things from a very detailed perspective. They've been able to contribute to quality assurance successes, as well as product development insights for any particular business, which in the future could include your business. Now, let's break down what this performance increase actually means for your business and look at some bottom line impacts like cost savings, revenue generation, and efficiency gains. Because this really is not just a feel-good statistic. It's a bottom line impact. Earlier, one of the companies that I mentioned with inclusive hiring practices, JP Morgan. Now, I want to talk about some specifics with you about how the inclusive practices that they developed reshaped their business. Studies from JP Morgan Chase's Autism at Work program, for example, found that this increase manifested itself in a couple of key areas based on their own metrics. The first one was quality improvement. Autistic employees in their neurodiversity program achieved 48% higher accuracy rates in certain types of transaction processing roles. When they looked at error rates, those decreased by over 35% in teams in which they had employed autistic individuals. What this translated to was roughly a $40,000 savings per quarter in just one division alone from reduced error correction needs. Now imagine, we're not talking about 40K a year. JP Morgan is a huge, again, international company. Saving one division $40,000 every quarter is a significant impact. That means what you're paying them has yielded its return on investment. Let's take a look at another point, productivity gains. Tasks that took typically 60 minutes were reduced down to as much as 42 to 45 minutes, which is roughly a 25% savings per task. Consistent performance levels throughout the day, especially in detail-oriented tasks, were seen, and higher rates of process improvement suggestions from autistic team members. All of these things, again, contributed to the level of productivity on the teams in which these individuals were employed. A third point we're going to look at is innovation metrics. 2 to 3 times more patents were filed by teams that included people who had autism. Identification of process inefficiencies that others missed were also found, and novel solutions to long-standing problems due to different thinking patterns were found. I talked about that a few minutes earlier. So keep these points in mind, because the key here isn't just that autistic employees perform well, it's that their presence actually elevates the performance of the entire team. When you combine different thinking styles, here's what you get. You get more diverse approaches to problem solving, increased attention to detail across your teams, higher standards for both precision and accuracy, as well as enhanced documentation and process clarity. So this is why I'm not just talking about individual performance. We're talking here about organizational transformation, because we've all heard the saying, you can't have two people who think alike because you'll never grow. You have to remind yourself constantly, because it's easy to forget in the work environment, because it is very common and very human-centered and human-natured to want to be around people who think, look, and act like us. When in reality, what the research shows is that we don't make progress by staying around people who look, think, and act like us. We make progress and gains when we surround ourselves with people who think differently than we do, because it also challenges us to think differently. And thereby, naturally, you're able to boost productivity, problem-solving skills, and all of these other things that I mentioned across your organization, which gives you a competitive advantage. Now, let's get down to something that I know is probably in your head and has been in your head, especially if you've thought about and have been responsible for and have been considering should you hire someone with a disability like autism? Because it shouldn't be a matter of should I hire them? Remember, equal opportunity employment requires you to be inclusive of persons with disabilities like autism. So here is what you've probably thought, and you're probably thinking as you've listened to me on this particular episode. Is this too difficult to implement? You may be thinking, I don't have the time, or it may be cost prohibitive, to provide accommodations. I've heard all of them and have even said similar things when it came to implementing something new for teams that I've managed over the years, especially when you're managing hundreds of people across departments like I have done in my previous career over the last 20 plus years in management. There's a shifting of my thinking, and becoming a change agent as a manager is what allowed me to be successful in managing teams. Because whether they have a disability or not, individuals as humans are diverse people. I had to learn to see and focus on opportunities and not the challenges. Because what do we know about life? There will always be challenges. So here are some common myths that I'm going to pair with realities when we think about hiring for a disability like autism. Let's consider this one myth. Accommodations are expensive and complex. That is the myth. Here instead is the reality. 58% of most accommodations cost nothing when it comes to hiring autistic individuals or persons who have a neurodivergent diagnosis. Most other things cost under $500, and it is typically a one-time thing that you have to implement. So you're spending that $500 one time to provide an accommodation that's going to be able to carry the employee through. Also, what's important that many people don't consider is that often accommodations benefit more than just the autistic individual. They benefit other employees as well. I'm going to talk to you more about that particular one later when we talk about the fact that I want you to stay here to the very end, right? Let's consider another myth. Management requires specialized expertise. That is the myth. Here instead is the reality that I propose to you. Most autistic employees simply need clear communication and expectations. They need written instructions. They need structured feedback. These practices will help improve you as a manager, not just for autistic people, but for all of the people who you are charged with being responsible for leading and guiding on your teams. So what is it that you really need, right? You need someone else to give you pieces, not for you to be the expert, but for you to know what to do when you need to do it. As a matter of fact, you should be more than a manager. As I've just mentioned, you should be a leader. And leaders, really good leaders, aim to make a positive impact on the people that they lead so that it makes it easy for them to follow your lead and go along with any changes that you want to bring about that, again, benefits the most amount of people possible in your organization and on the teams that you represent or lead. Now that we've thought about follow the leader and what we just previously discussed as we wrap up this month's episode, I want you to think about this. that while organizations like Microsoft and JP Morgan and SAP have big bankrolls and dedicated in-house staff to make this kind of training happen so that it's sustainable, and successful, you don't need to hire a specific dedicated person or sacrifice productivity to see the kinds of gains that these companies have seen. The key is starting small, measuring results, and scaling what works. Many of these successful programs began with just one department or team to get their initiatives and efforts started around autism inclusivity. You simply need the right external partner and support, and that's where a partnership with the Black Book Experience is the logical next step. I asked you in the beginning of this episode to stay until the end because I have an exciting announcement. And to that end, I want to share with you that I've created a quick start guide that compiles some key information for you to use to help you get started on your inclusion journey. Use the link in the description below this video to get your copy of that guide. One of my favorite movies is called What About Bob with Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray. And from that movie comes this line that I have carried with me for years and years since I've seen this movie. And Bill Murray says baby steps. He says baby steps throughout the whole movie. If you have not seen this movie, I promise you it's a great movie to get a good laugh, perhaps while you're winding down and having some personal time over the holidays. Take a look at it. But my point is this: take your first baby step by clicking on that link to get your copy of the guide and to get started. It's in my link tree below. And with that announcement, that's a wrap for this Fireside Friday. And it's a reminder that not only is inclusion right, and it is part of social justice, but it is also profitable. So you can have that social impact as well as increasing revenue. So profit with purpose. And if you've not subscribed, please do so to help the algorithm. It is greatly appreciated. Also, like the video so that other people can find us, and feel free to share it. And last but not least, leave a question or comment in the chat below. I look forward to hearing your thoughts, seeing what you have to say as well. So until next time, take care and wishing everyone a great weekend.